You talk about the rich young ruler and that call
Hmm.
to sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and that in a way, that's kind of what you did. Tell
Yeah,
me about that and
I,
how that felt.
I call it my rich young ruler moment, and most people would be
Yeah.
familiar with the story. But he came up to Jesus and said, uh, "Rabbi, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus gives him the conventional answer: "Well, keep all the commandments." You know, he's a young Jewish man. Keep all the commandments, honor your mother and father. Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And the young man said, "I've done all this. I got it covered. Jesus,
Yeah.
check me out. My reputation.
Yeah.
I'm a good Jew. I've kept all the commandments." And then it says Jesus looked at him and loved him and said, "You lack one
Mm.
thing. Sell everything you have and give it to the
Yeah.
poor, and then come follow me, and you'll have treasure in heaven." and um, so I felt very much like I was having this moment with Jesus because I had been living what I
Mm.
felt was the perfect Christian life, poster child of the Christian faith, happily married, 5 kids, living in the
Mm.
suburbs, successful professionally, went to church every Sunday,
Yeah.
sitting on the board of our Christian school. And, I had
Mm.
all my boxes checked, just like that rich young ruler did. And I felt like the
Yeah.
Lord was saying, "But Rich, you lack one thing," and metaphorically, I was
Yeah.
being asked to sell everything I had and give it to the poor and come and follow
Yeah.
him. And so,
Yeah.
uh, if you remember how that story ends, and I know you do because you're a pastor, it says
Mhm.
the man went away very sad because he had great wealth. In other words, he couldn't do it. He just couldn't
Yeah.
do what Jesus
Yeah.
asked him to do. And I wanted to so badly to
Yeah.
tear that story out of my Bible, crumple it up, and throw it in the fireplace because it was so convicting because it was exactly what God
Yeah.
was asking me to do. And like the rich young ruler, I did not want to do it. I
Yeah.
did not. I was living large and loving it, and but partially
Mm.
because of my faithful wife, she said we need to be where God calls us to be, and that's the only safe place for our family to go. So we went.